Ladies and gentlemen, I am about to utter one of the most horrifying phrases in the horror genre. Ready? There will be a sequel because sequels in horror are legendary trash. I mean, they are some of the most bottom of the barrel bullshit you will ever see in film. From Hills Have Eyes 2 to Hostel 2 to The Exorcist 2. How do you ruin the sequel to one of the most successful horror movies ever made? Well, they found a way. But, ladies and gentlemen, I am here to tell you today that the subject of today's video, I think, may have broken that curse, at least for their franchise, because I'm almost positive that there's going to be another god awful sequel coming down the pipeline. But as of today, we actually got a good one. Let's talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today's video, The Black Phone 2. I gotta tell you, when I first knew that there was a sequel coming out and I watched the trailer, which you can find right here on this channel, I wasn't completely sold. I wasn't. I was surprised by the first one, by how good it really was. And I was okay with it being a standalone movie, especially, spoiler alert, the bad guy dies at the end. So I figured that was it. We're done. Let's wash our hands and move on to the next one. Once I saw that he was back and he was on skates, I had questions, lots of questions. And ladies and gentlemen, I am here to tell you, I fully believe they succeeded. But before we get into the review, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for listening to me ramble about movies. If you're new here, go ahead and click that subscribe button. It is absolutely free to do. Don't forget to like the video. That way I can grow this channel into something spectacular and beautiful. Back to the review. This film, pretty simple in plot. 4 years after the events of The Black Phone, Finn returns and has to deal with the grabber coming back again. Now, here was my first concern. Why is the grabber back? We watched him die. We don't need another Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers where they survive these horrific deaths just to come back to fight our hero again after they've already accomplished it. But we'll get there. Finn, 4 years after the events of the first film, is not okay. The first thing we see is him putting belt to ass. Anybody that steps up to this dude is getting the hell beat out of them. We can clearly see that the PTSD that he suffered in the first film has not gone anywhere. And if anything, we see him doing a lot of self-medication, a lot of destructive behaviors that we know down the line as he becomes an adult will only get worse. So immediately I'm already rooting, hoping that he will somehow find his way out of his funk. Introducing his sister Gwen. This whole movie is surrounded by her and her abilities to communicate with the dead, much like her mother. She begins to get random phone calls and visions from kids in the past asking for their help, but she doesn't quite know why. That's going to be all I'm going to say about the plot because I don't really want to spoil the movie. I do encourage everybody to go out and watch this movie for themselves, especially if you saw and liked the first one. I believe you will like this one. I think this one has a lot of elements that the other one didn't that I think are really good. The acting in this movie is a little bit better than what we got in the first one. Ethan Hawke returns as the grabber, but one thing I like is that they didn't make him look like himself. He looked like how he should look if someone was burned to death. Finn comes back and he is very good at his emotionally distraught, self-destructive role. Gwen plays her part very well. The acting in this movie was very solid. I was able to lose myself in this problem, and it really made me root for them to eventually get out of this situation. Next, I want to talk about the cinematography. The way this movie was shot was absolutely phenomenal. Gwen's dream sequences, which are shot in this really cool, grainy, like 32 millimeter, almost like handheld camera from the 80s, is just, it was absolutely phenomenal. It really made you feel like you were somewhere else, and that graininess and that hissing sound that you would get from like an old VHS tape was a really nice touch. Really, really nice touch. The setting is one of those that I would never go to. It is a takes place in a Christian like winter camp out in the middle of nowhere. So anybody who's watched my videos before, I don't do middle of the nowhere stuff. I just don't. Not in my nature, not doing it. This is a very, very good setting for this kind of movie. It kind of gives me Shining vibes, where you know that there's no additional help that could get there. There's no way for anybody to get there and help them. The story is, to me, one of the best parts. They bring up and they connect a lot of things, and as far as the grabber coming back, they explained it so well that I was able to let it go. It seems like he went through the Voldemort school of Horcruxes, which allows him to kind of stick around even after death, which I thought was a really nice touch and didn't feel so far out of this movie that it was kind of a bit more of like a really, like, no, we don't, that's not an acceptable answer. I think they did a very good job of making sure that everything was cohesive, made sense, and fit with this movie, the feel of this movie. This was a very, very good movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Have you seen this movie? What do you think of it? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see y'all in the next video. Peace.